Imagine this. You're the person everyone calls when they need help. You're the one who stays late to cover for a coworker, who lends money to friends who never pay it back, who says yes when you desperately want to say no. You pride yourself on being kind, compassionate, generous. But here's what's eating at you in those quiet moments. Why does it feel like the more good you do, the more people seem to walk all over you? You've probably been told it's just bad luck, that you're too nice, that you need to be more selfish. But what if I told you that your kindness isn't a character flaw? It's actually a neurobiological vulnerability that predators can sense and exploit. What if the very thing that makes you beautiful as a human being is also what makes you a target? This isn't just philosophy. This is brain science, and once you understand what's happening in your neural circuits when you're being kind, you'll realize why certain people seem drawn to you like moths to a flame, and why others, the healthiest ones, sometimes keep their distance. You see, your brain doesn't distinguish between being kind and being defenseless. To your ancient neural circuits, generosity and vulnerability look remarkably similar. When you're being genuinely compassionate, you're literally opening neural pathways that make you more susceptible to manipulation. Your mirror neurons fire intensely. Your oxytocin floods your system, and your prefrontal cortex, the part that usually protects you from bad decisions, goes quiet. This creates what psychologists call the kindness paradox. The more authentically generous you are, the more attractive you become to people who need someone to exploit. But the cruel irony, the people who most deserve your kindness, the fellow kind souls, often can't accept it because they're too busy giving themselves. Think about it. When was the last time another genuinely kind person asked you for a favor? They don't. They're too considerate. It's always the takers, the manipulators, the emotional vampires who somehow find their way to your door. They have an almost supernatural ability to identify the helpers, the fixers, the people who will sacrifice themselves to keep others comfortable. But here's where it gets truly disturbing. Research shows that people with certain personality disorders, narcissists, sociopaths, chronic manipulators, actually have enhanced abilities to spot kind people. They can literally see the micro-expressions, body language, and behavioral patterns that signal, this person will put my needs before their own. It's like they have predator vision for kindness. Your brain, meanwhile, is working against you. Every time you help someone, you get a hit of dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, the same neurochemical cocktail that creates addiction. You become chemically dependent on helping others, even when those others are destroying you. Your neural pathways literally rewire to seek out opportunities to sacrifice yourself. This is why setting boundaries feels so agonizing. It's not just emotional, it's neurological withdrawal. Your brain is screaming for its next fix of helping someone, even if that someone sees your kindness as weakness to be exploited. The most devastating part? Kind people don't just attract manipulators, they often repel other kind people. Healthy individuals with good boundaries look at chronic people-pleasers and feel uncomfortable, not because they don't appreciate kindness, but because they recognize the desperate energy underneath it. They sense that your giving comes from a place of need rather than abundance, and their own self-preservation instincts kick in. If this resonates with you, if you're tired of being the person everyone uses but no one truly values, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button, because what I'm about to share with you might be the most important thing you ever learn about human psychology. The question isn't why kind people get taken advantage of. The question is why we evolved to be vulnerable in the first place. And the answer lies in a psychological truth that most people refuse to face. Kindness without boundaries isn't kindness at all. It's trauma response. Let's start with the neuroscience. When you perform an act of genuine kindness, your brain releases oxytocin, often called the love hormone. But here's what most people don't know. Oxytocin doesn't just make you feel good. It literally makes you more trusting, more empathetic, and less able to detect deception. In evolutionary terms, this made sense when we lived in small tribes, where everyone's survival depended on cooperation. But in today's world, it's like walking around with a sign that says, "I won't fight back." Your mirror neurons compound this vulnerability. These are the brain cells that fire both when you perform an action and when you watch someone else perform the same action. They're what allow you to feel empathy, to understand others' emotions, to connect. But in kind people, mirror neurons are hyperactive. You don't just empathize, you absorb other people's emotional state so completely that you lose track of where they end and you begin. This is why you feel guilty when you see someone upset, even if you had nothing to do with it. Your brain is literally experiencing their distress as your own distress. And the only way to make that uncomfortable feeling go away is to fix their problem, even if fixing it means ignoring your own needs. But here's the dark psychology at play. Manipulative people instinctively understand this about you. They've learned to weaponize your empathy. They don't need to ask for help directly. They just need to display distress in your presence. Your hyperactive mirror neurons do the rest, flooding you with their emotional state until helping them feels like helping yourself. Carl Jung wrote about this phenomenon in his work on psychological types. He identified what he called feeling types, people whose primary way of making decisions is through emotional consideration for others. Jung noted that these individuals often sacrifice their own well-being, not out of genuine generosity, but out of an unconscious need to maintain emotional harmony in their environment. This connects to what modern psychology calls agreeableness, one of the big 5 personality traits. High agreeableness is associated with kindness, cooperation, and trust, but research shows it's also associated with being taken advantage of, earning less money, and experiencing higher levels of stress. The most agreeable people are often the most exploited people. Why? Because agreeableness is rooted in conflict avoidance. When you're high in agreeableness, your nervous system interprets disagreement as threat. Your amygdala fires, your stress hormones spike, and your brain's primary goal becomes restoring peace, even if that peace comes at your expense. This is where the manipulation happens. Skilled exploiters don't threaten you directly. They create artificial conflict that only your compliance can resolve. They make themselves upset, disappointed, or distressed, and then sit back while your neural wiring compels you to fix the situation by giving them what they want. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer observed this pattern in human relationships. He described how people unconsciously position themselves as either hedgehogs or porcupines in social situations. Hedgehogs curl up and protect themselves. Porcupines extend their quills outward. But kind people in Schopenhauer's framework are like creatures without any defensive mechanism at all. They approach every interaction with open vulnerability, mistaking this for virtue. But perhaps the most insidious aspect of this dynamic is how it perpetuates itself. Every time you get taken advantage of, you don't learn to set boundaries, you learn to be even kinder. Your brain concludes that the problem wasn't that you gave too much, but that you didn't give enough. If only you'd been more understanding, more generous, more self-sacrificing, then surely the other person would have treated you better. This creates what psychologists call trauma bonding with your own kindness. You become addicted to the very thing that's destroying you, convinced that the solution to being exploited is to become even more exploitable. The cruel irony is that this approach guarantees you'll attract more exploiters while simultaneously repelling the healthy people who might actually appreciate your genuine nature. Because healthy people don't need you to sacrifice yourself to prove your worth. They need you to value yourself enough to create sustainable relationships. What happens to your brain when you spend years being kind to people who don't deserve it? The consequences go far deeper than just feeling tired or resentful. You're literally rewiring your neural pathways in ways that make healthy relationships impossible. Let's start with what chronic people-pleasing does to your reward system. Every time you help someone, your brain releases dopamine, the same neurotransmitter involved in addiction. Over time, you develop tolerance. You need bigger and bigger acts of self-sacrifice to get the same neurochemical reward. This is why people-pleasers often escalate their giving behavior, becoming more and more extreme in their generosity until they're completely depleted. But here's where it gets truly disturbing. Your brain starts to confuse love with exploitation. When someone takes advantage of your kindness, your oxytocin levels spike just as much as when someone genuinely appreciates you. Your neural circuits can't distinguish between being valued and being used. This creates what researchers call attachment to suffering. You unconsciously begin to associate being treated poorly with being loved. This neural confusion explains why kind people often feel more comfortable in dysfunctional relationships than healthy ones. When someone treats you well, respects your boundaries, and doesn't need you to sacrifice yourself, it feels wrong. Your brain, conditioned to equate love with struggle, interprets kindness from others as disinterest or superficiality. Meanwhile, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logical decision-making, begins to atrophy from disuse. When you're constantly prioritizing others' emotional states over your own rational self-interest, you literally lose the ability to think clearly about relationships. You start making decisions based purely on how they'll make others feel, not on whether they're actually good for you. This is why kind people often describe feeling like they're losing themselves in relationships. It's not a metaphor, it's neurological reality. Your brain's sense of self, located primarily in the medial, prefrontal cortex, becomes hijacked by your hyperactive empathy circuits. You genuinely don't know where you end and other people begin. The social consequences are devastating. Other kind people, the ones who might actually appreciate your nature, start avoiding you because they can sense your neediness. Healthy. Individuals have well-developed boundaries, and they instinctively recognize when someone's giving comes from desperation rather than abundance. Your energy feels heavy to them, demanding rather than generous. This creates what I call the kindness trap. The more desperately you need to feel needed, the more you attract people who will use you and repel people who might actually love you. You become trapped in a cycle where your kindness only brings you pain, but stopping being kind feels like dying. Consider the neurobiological research on what scientists call pathological altruism. Studies show that people who chronically self-sacrifice have elevated cortisol levels, compromised immune systems, and higher rates of depression and anxiety. Their bodies are literally breaking down from the stress of constantly putting others first. But perhaps most tragically, chronic people-pleasing destroys your ability to receive love. When someone genuinely tries to care for you, your brain doesn't know how to process it. You feel uncomfortable, unworthy, suspicious. You may even sabotage the relationship because unconsciously you believe that real love requires suffering, sacrifice, and struggle. This is why many kind people find themselves surrounded by people yet feeling profoundly alone. They're connected to others only through their utility, not through their authentic selves. They've trained everyone in their lives to see them as a resource rather than as a person worthy of care and consideration. The ripple effects extend to every area of life. At work, you're passed over for promotions because you're seen as someone who will do extra work without extra pay. In friendships, you become the therapist, but never the friend. Everyone shares their problems with you, but no one asks about your dreams, your fears, your inner world. Your children, if you have them, learn that love means self-abandonment. They watch you sacrifice yourself over and over, and they conclude that this is what caring looks like. You inadvertently pass on your trauma, teaching the next generation that their worth depends on how much they can give up of themselves. The most heartbreaking consequence of all, you lose access to your own intuition. Your inner guidance system, designed to protect you and help you thrive, gets drowned out by the constant noise of other people's needs and emotions. You become a stranger to yourself, living a life that feels hollow because it's built entirely around avoiding other people's discomfort rather than pursuing your own joy. The path out of the kindness trap isn't to become cruel or selfish. It's to revolutionize your understanding of what kindness actually is. And this revolution starts with a radical truth. Real kindness requires boundaries. Without them, what you're offering isn't love. It's codependency disguised as virtue. Your first act of rebellion must be neurological. You need to literally rewire your brain's reward system. Instead of getting your dopamine hit from helping others, you need to train your neural circuits to reward you for honoring your own needs. This isn't selfishness. It's the foundation that makes authentic generosity possible. Start with what neuroscientists call neural pattern interruption. The next time someone displays distress in your presence, instead of immediately jumping, to fix their problem, pause. Take 3 deep breaths. Ask yourself, is this my responsibility or am I being triggered by my hyperactive empathy circuits? This simple pause allows your prefrontal cortex to come back online and make a conscious choice, instead of an automatic reaction. Practice saying no to small requests first. Your brain needs to learn that disappointing others won't actually kill you. Each time you set a boundary and survive the temporary discomfort, you're building new neural pathways that associate self-protection with safety rather than threat. But here's the counterintuitive part. As you start setting boundaries, you'll initially feel worse, not better. Your brain will interpret this as withdrawal because you're literally detoxing from your people-pleasing addiction. The manipulators in your life will escalate their demands, trying to drag you back into your old patterns. This is when most people give up, convinced that boundaries make them mean. Push through this phase. What's happening is that you're sorting people into 2 categories: those who respect your boundaries and those who only valued you for what you could do for them. This sorting process is painful but essential. You're discovering who actually loves you versus who was just using you. The people who get angry when you start setting boundaries, they're telling you everything you need to know about their true intentions. Real friends celebrate when you start valuing yourself. They don't need you to be depleted to feel secure in the relationship. Meanwhile, practice what I call strategic selfishness. Deliberately do things for yourself that feel indulgent or selfish. Take a bath instead of doing someone else's laundry. Go to bed early instead of staying up to listen to a friend's drama. Buy yourself something nice instead of always spending money on others. These acts aren't actually selfish, they're revolutionary. You're teaching your brain that your needs matter just as much as everyone else's. You're rebuilding your sense of self-worth from the inside out. Start paying attention to your energy levels around different people. Notice who drains you and who energizes you. The people who consistently leave you feeling exhausted are likely taking more than they're giving, regardless of how nice they seem. Energy doesn't lie. Trust what your body tells you about people. Learn to distinguish between helping and enabling. Helping empowers someone to solve their own problems. Enabling takes away their need to develop independence and resilience. When you're always fixing things for others, you're not actually being kind, you're preventing them from growing. Most importantly, start surrounding yourself with people who have healthy boundaries. Study how they navigate relationships. Notice how they can be caring without being doormats, generous without being exploited. These people will teach you, through example, what mutual respect actually looks like. The goal isn't to become less kind, it's to become selectively kind. To offer your beautiful heart only to people who will cherish it rather than consume it. This isn't cruelty, it's wisdom. And it's the only way to ensure that your kindness becomes a gift rather than a wound. Remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. Taking care of yourself isn't preparation for taking care of others. It's what makes caring for others sustainable and authentic. Here's the truth that will change everything. The people worth your kindness are the ones who don't need it to survive. Think about that for a moment. The healthiest, most emotionally mature people in your life, they're not coming to you in crisis. They're not demanding your attention, your time, your energy. They can appreciate your kindness without requiring it for their basic functioning. These are the people who deserve your beautiful heart. But there's an even deeper truth hiding beneath this revelation. The reason you've been attracting exploiters isn't because you're too kind. It's because you've been unconsciously choosing to be kind to the wrong people as a way of avoiding real intimacy. Stay with me here. Real intimacy requires vulnerability from both sides. It means being seen and accepted for who you actually are, not for what you can do for others. But somewhere along the way, you learned that it was safer to be needed than to be known. Being needed feels more secure because it gives you control. As long as you're useful, they'll stay. But being known, that's terrifying. Because what if they see the real you and decide you're not enough? So instead, you've built your entire identity around being indispensable. You've made yourself into a human solution to other people's problems, believing This will guarantee you won't be abandoned. The cruel irony is that this strategy guarantees you'll never experience real love. Because love isn't about utility, it's about connection. And connection requires two whole people choosing each other, not one person desperately propping up another. This is why setting boundaries feels so scary. It's not just about disappointing others, it's about discovering whether anyone will still want you when you're not constantly giving them things. It's about finding out if you're lovable just for being you, not for what you can provide. But here's what happens when you finally take this risk. You discover that the people who truly love you have been waiting for the real you to show up. They've been watching you exhaust yourself trying to earn what they've been wanting to give you freely all along. Your relationships become deeper, more authentic, more nourishing. The manipulators and users fall away naturally because they were never interested in you anyway, only in what you could do for them. And yes, this process can be lonely at first. You might find your social circle shrinking dramatically, but what remains is pure gold, relationships based on mutual respect, genuine affection, and authentic connection. You'll also discover something profound about kindness itself. When you stop being kind out of desperation and start being kind out of choice, your generosity becomes incredibly powerful. Instead of giving from emptiness, you give from abundance. Instead of helping to avoid conflict, you help to create genuine positive change. This is what the ancient philosophers understood about virtue. True kindness isn't self-sacrifice, it's self-possession. It's being so grounded in your own worth that you can give freely without losing yourself. It's having such strong boundaries that when you choose to let someone in, it actually means something. The most beautiful part of this transformation is that you become a magnet for other emotionally healthy people. They can sense that your kindness comes from strength rather than weakness, from choice rather than compulsion. They trust you more because they know you won't say yes when you mean no. If this message has reached you at exactly the right time, if you're ready to stop being kind to people who don't deserve it and start being selective with your beautiful heart, then subscribe to this channel for more insights into human psychology. Leave a comment below sharing one boundary you're going to set this week. Your future self and the people who truly love you will thank you for it. The truth is, you were never too kind. You were just kind to the wrong people, and that changes everything.